Chapter 14. Episode 14, Greenhouse Gambit. As the initial surge of magical energy subsided, Sabrina, Noah, and Quill found themselves in a transformed version of the greenhouse. The once familiar structure had morphed into a surreal landscape where reality seemed to bend and twist. Shards of glass hung suspended in mid-air, reflecting fractured images of the chaos around them. Sabrina blinked, trying to make sense of their new surroundings. "What just happened?" she asked, her voice echoing strangely in the altered space. Noah, still clutching the artifact piece, looked around in awe. "I think we're in some kind of pocket dimension," he said. "The explosion must have torn a hole in the fabric of reality." As they took in their new environment, they noticed a startling phenomenon. The seasons were cycling rapidly around them, transforming the landscape in a matter of seconds. Spring flowers bloomed and withered, giving way to summer heat, then autumn leaves, and finally winter snow, only to start the cycle again. Quill chirped anxiously, its quills standing on end as it sensed the magical instability surrounding them. Sabrina reached down to comfort her familiar, feeling the hedgehog's unease. Suddenly, a movement caught their attention. In a nearby section of the greenhouse, they spotted a figure trapped in what appeared to be a time loop. It was Iris, the artifact user, reliving the moment of her defeat over and over again. Her face was frozen in an expression of shock and dismay as she reached for the artifact, only to have it slip away each time. "We need to stabilize this area," Sabrina said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "If we don't contain this magical chaos, it could spread to the rest of Hallowville." Focusing her magic, Sabrina began to weave a spell of containment around them. Slowly, a bubble of calm began to form, pushing back the swirling chaos of rapidly changing seasons. Within this safe zone, the air grew still, and the frantic cycling of time slowed to a more manageable pace. Noah watched in admiration as Sabrina worked, feeling the artifact piece pulse against his palm. Its power seemed to resonate with the magic Sabrina was wielding, creating a harmonic balance that strengthened her efforts. Quill, sensing its role, began to absorb the excess magical energy that threatened to overwhelm Sabrina's containment spell. The hedgehog's quills glowed brightly, each one a reservoir for the chaotic magic that surrounded them. As the immediate danger subsided, they began to explore their transformed surroundings more carefully. The greenhouse had become a patchwork of seasonal microclimates, each section representing a different time of year. In one corner, spring flowers bloomed eternally, while just a few steps away, autumn leaves crunched underfoot. "It's like the greenhouse has become a nexus of seasonal magic," Sabrina observed, her voice filled with wonder and concern. "Each area is locked into a specific season." Noah nodded, his sheriff's instincts kicking in as he assessed the situation. "If this is happening here, it could be affecting the magical balance of the entire town. We need to find a way to restore equilibrium." Sabrina agreed, her mind racing with possible solutions. "The artifact piece seems to be key. It's responding to the seasonal energies around us. If we can use it to harmonize these disparate areas, we might be able to stabilize the greenhouse and prevent further magical instability in Hallowville." As they discussed their plan, Quill suddenly became agitated, chirping loudly and pointing with its nose. Following the hedgehog's gaze, they noticed something they had overlooked before: strange symbols etched into the greenhouse walls. Approaching cautiously, Sabrina examined the markings. They were a complex array of magical sigils, some familiar, others completely unknown to her. "These weren't here before," she murmured, tracing one of the symbols with her finger. "It's like they've been revealed by the magical explosion." Noah frowned, his cop instincts on high alert. "This feels like more than just a random magical accident. These symbols, they're too deliberate, too organized." "You're right," Sabrina agreed, a chill running down her spine. "This hints at a larger conspiracy. Someone has been planning this, manipulating the magical energies of Hallowville for who knows how long." As they contemplated the implications of their discovery, a distant rumble reminded them of their precarious situation. The magical disturbances would soon attract attention, both from those who might help and those who might seek to exploit the chaos. "We need to get out of here," Noah said urgently. "We have the artifact piece, and now we know about these symbols. We need to regroup and figure out our next move." Sabrina nodded, but hesitated as she looked at the still-trapped Iris. What about her? We can't just leave her like this. Noah's expression hardened. She made her choice when she tried to disrupt Hallowville's balance. For now, she's contained and not a threat. We'll come back for her once we've stabilized the situation. Reluctantly, Sabrina agreed. They began to plan their escape, with Sabrina working to extend her containment spell into a protective bubble that would allow them to navigate through the chaotic areas of the greenhouse. As they prepared to leave, Quill suddenly perked up, its quills glowing even brighter than before. The hedgehog seemed to be sensing something beyond the greenhouse walls, something that resonated with the stored magical energy it had absorbed. "What is it, Quill?" Sabrina asked, kneeling down to her familiar's level. Quill chirped excitedly, its eyes fixed on a point beyond the greenhouse. Whatever it sensed, it seemed to be calling to the little hedgehog, urging them in a specific direction. "I think Quill's found our way out," Noah said, hope creeping into his voice. Sabrina nodded, trusting in her familiar's instincts. "All right, let's go, but stay alert. We don't know what's waiting for us out there. And Hallowville is bound to be in chaos after this magical surge." With a final look at the transformed greenhouse, its walls now bearing the marks of a hidden conspiracy, Sabrina, Noah, and Quill prepared to step back into the unknown. Sabrina closed her eyes, focusing her magical energy into a shimmering path that cut through the chaotic greenhouse. The air around them rippled as she wove protective spells into the very fabric of their surroundings. "Stay close," she warned Noah and Quill. "This path should keep us safe, but I don't know how long it'll hold in this magical maelstrom." They set off, the greenhouse a kaleidoscope of seasons around them. To their left, winter frost crept up the glass panes, intricate patterns spreading like icy lace. Just a few feet away, spring flowers burst into bloom, their perfume mingling with the crisp scent of fresh snow. Noah's eyes darted from side to side, his mind working overtime to anticipate the shifting hazards. "We should move quickly through the winter section," he advised. "The cold could slow us down, but be careful in the spring area. Those vines look like they could come to life at any moment." As if on cue, a tendril of ivy reached out towards them, its leaves shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Sabrina muttered a quick incantation, and the vine recoiled, curling back on itself. They pressed on, the seasons changing rapidly around them. Summer heat blazed to their right, the air shimmering with magical mirages. Autumn leaves swirled in a non-existent breeze to their left, their colors more vibrant than any natural foliage. As they navigated this surreal landscape, they encountered creatures born from the fusion of seasonal magics. A butterfly with snowflake-patterned wings fluttered past, leaving a trail of frost in its wake. A squirrel with leaves for fur scampered across their path, acorns sprouting where its feet touched the ground. Quill chirped suddenly, its quills standing on end. The hedgehog darted to the left, urging them to follow. Just as they changed course, a geyser of steaming water erupted where they had been standing moments before. "Good call, Quill," Sabrina said, patting her familiar gratefully. The hedgehog's ability to sense magical currents was proving invaluable in this unpredictable environment. As they neared what they hoped was the exit, Noah held up a hand, signaling them to stop. "Look," he whispered, pointing to a section of the greenhouse that seemed more organized than the rest. "I think we've found our artifact user's workspace." They approached cautiously. The area was a stark contrast to the chaos around it, with neatly arranged tables covered in magical instruments and stacks of papers. Sabrina's eyes widened as she took in the scene. "We need to gather as much evidence as we can," she said, pulling an enchanted bag from her pocket. It was small, no bigger than a coin purse, but Sabrina knew it could hold far more than its size suggested. They moved quickly, grabbing documents and magical items that looked important. Sabrina skimmed through papers as she stuffed them into the bag, her frown deepening with each page. "This is worse than we thought," she murmured. "It looks like our artifact user wasn't working alone. There's mention of a group, some kind of organization planning to shift Hallowville's magic permanently." Noah, meanwhile, had discovered a leather-bound journal. He flipped through it rapidly, his expression grim. "This details everything," he said. "Plans, meeting locations, even names of other members. We've stumbled onto something big here, Sabrina. As Noah continued his search, his eyes fell on a map pinned to the wall. It showed Hallowville and the surrounding areas, with several locations marked with strange symbols. These must be connected to the conspiracy, he said, carefully removing the map and adding it to their growing collection of evidence. Just as they finished securing the last of the important items, Quill suddenly tensed, its quills vibrating with alarm. In the distance, they could hear voices approaching, growing louder by the second. "Time to go," Noah said urgently, zipping up the enchanted bag and handing it to Sabrina. Sabrina nodded, quickly reinforcing their magical path. "This way," she said, pointing towards a shimmering distortion in the air that might have been their exit. They moved swiftly, Quill leading the way with its unerring sense of magical currents. Behind them, the voices grew louder, accompanied by the sound of footsteps and the crackle of magical energy. As they reached the distortion, Sabrina hesitated for a moment. "Once we step through, I don't know where we'll end up," she warned. "The magical instability could have shifted the exit point." Noah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Wherever it takes us, we'll face it together," he said firmly. Quill chirped in agreement, its quills glowing with stored magical energy. With a deep breath, Sabrina nodded. "Together, then," she said, and as one, they stepped into the shimmering portal, leaving the chaos of the greenhouse behind. The world twisted and warped around them, a kaleidoscope of seasons and magic. For a moment, they were everywhere and nowhere, suspended between realities. Then, with a rush of wind and a flash of light, they stumbled out onto solid ground, gasping for breath. As their vision cleared, they found themselves in a familiar yet transformed Hallowville. The town was a patchwork of seasons, much like the greenhouse they had just left. Spring flowers bloomed alongside jack-o'-lanterns, while summer sun shone down on trees heavy with autumn leaves. "We made it," Sabrina breathed, clutching the enchanted bag tightly. "But Hallowville, it's changed." Noah nodded grimly, his eyes scanning their surroundings. "The magical imbalance is spreading," he said. "We need to find a safe place to regroup and go through this evidence. Whatever this conspiracy is planning, we need to stop it before Hallowville is changed forever." Quill chirped in agreement, its quills still glowing with absorbed magic. The little hedgehog seemed more alert than ever, its senses attuned to the shifting magical currents of their transformed town. Sabrina, Noah, and Quill hurried through the streets of Hallowville, their senses on high alert as they navigated the bizarre mix of seasons surrounding them. They reached the sheriff's office, quickly ducking inside. Noah locked the door behind them, while Sabrina muttered an incantation, her fingers tracing glowing sigils in the air. A shimmering barrier fell into place, sealing the windows and doors with a protective magical shield. "That should keep us safe for now," Sabrina said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. She placed the enchanted bag on Noah's desk, carefully unpacking its contents. Noah cleared a large space, spreading out maps and documents. "Let's see what we've got here," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. They began sorting through the evidence, with Sabrina focusing on the leather-bound journal, while Noah examined the map they'd taken from the greenhouse. Quill perched on the edge of the desk, its quills twitching as it observed their work. As Sabrina flipped through the journal, she encountered pages filled with strange symbols and coded text. She frowned, her fingers hovering over the cryptic writing. "This is going to take some work to decipher," she murmured. Closing her eyes, she began to whisper ancient words of revelation, her hands glowing faintly as she worked to unravel the magical encryption. Meanwhile, Noah had pinned the conspiracy map to a corkboard and was comparing it to his own map of recent magical disturbances in Hallowville. "There's definitely a pattern here," he said, marking correlations between the two maps. "Almost every location they've marked corresponds to an area where we've had reports of unusual magical activity." As they worked, Quill began to chirp excitedly, its quills glowing with an otherworldly light. The little hedgehog scampered across the desk, pausing at certain documents and items. Sabrina looked up from the journal, her eyes widening in realization. "Quill's sensing residual magic on these items," she explained to Noah. "It might be able to give us additional clues about where they've been or who's handled them." Noah nodded, impressed. Good work, little guy, he said, gently patting Quill's head. The hedgehog preened under the praise, its quills glowing even brighter. As the hours passed, the true scope of what they were dealing with began to emerge. Sabrina managed to decipher large portions of the coded journal, her face growing more serious with each revelation. "Noah," she said, her voice tight with concern, "this is bigger than we thought. It's not just one person or a small group. There's an entire secret society dedicated to bringing eternal spring to Hallowville." Noah looked up from his maps, his expression grim. "That explains the level of organization we're seeing. But why? What could they possibly gain from disrupting the town's magical balance?" Sabrina shook her head, turning back to the journal. "It's not entirely clear, but from what I can gather, they believe that by locking Hallowville into eternal spring, they can harness an unprecedented level of magical power. As they continued to piece together the information, they made a crucial discovery about the artifact they'd been chasing." Sabrina's eyes widened as she read a particular passage in the journal. "Listen to this," she said, her voice filled with urgency. "The artifact of Equinox, when whole, serves as the keystone of Hallowville's magical balance. Its 4 pieces, representing each season, must be united at the moment of perfect equilibrium to maintain the cycle of magic that sustains our town." Noah leaned in, his interest piqued. "So that's why they've been after the artifact pieces. If they control the artifact of Equinox, they control Hallowville's magical destiny." Sabrina nodded, her expression serious. "And if they succeed in bringing eternal spring, it could have catastrophic consequences for the town and its inhabitants." As the full picture of the conspiracy came into focus, Sabrina and Noah began to formulate a plan to counter the secret society's efforts. They worked tirelessly, mapping out strategies, identifying potential allies, and discussing ways to protect the remaining artifact pieces. "We need to secure the other pieces of the artifact of Equinox before the society gets to them," Sabrina said, pacing the office. "But we also need to find a way to reverse the magical imbalance that's already affecting the town." Noah nodded in agreement. "And we can't forget about the townspeople. The longer this goes on, the harder it will be to keep the magical nature of Hallowville a secret from the non-magical residents." As they continued to plan, a sobering realization settled over them. The task before them was monumental, far too big for just the 2 of them to handle alone. Sabrina voiced what they were both thinking. "We need help, Noah. Trusted allies who can assist us in this fight." Noah ran a hand through his hair, considering their options. "You're right. We should reach out to your students for starters. They've already proven themselves capable in magical crises." "Agreed," Sabrina said. "And what about Agatha? Her knowledge of Hallowville's magical history could be invaluable." As they compiled a list of potential allies, Quill suddenly perked up, its quills glowing brightly. The hedgehog scampered to the window, chirping insistently. Sabrina and Noah exchanged a glance before moving to join Quill. Outside, they could see the magical chaos in Hallowville had intensified. The sky was a patchwork of spring sunshine and autumnal storm clouds, while trees lining the street bore both spring blossoms and fall foliage. "We're running out of time," Noah said quietly. Sabrina nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Then we'd better get to work. Hallowville needs us." Sabrina and Noah knew they needed to act quickly. They spent the next few hours carefully selecting and contacting potential allies, using a combination of magical and mundane methods to ensure their messages remained secret. By nightfall, they had assembled a small but capable group of trusted individuals in the back room of Sabrina's bookshop. As the last person slipped through the door, Sabrina activated a series of protective wards, ensuring their meeting would remain undetected. The room was filled with a diverse group, some of Sabrina's most talented students, a few members of the magical community who had shown skepticism towards the Spring faction, and even Agatha Thornwood, who sat in a corner, her eyes sharp and watchful. Noah cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. We've called you here because Hallowville is facing a threat unlike anything we've seen before." Sabrina stepped forward, her face serious. "What we're about to share with you must remain absolutely confidential. The magical balance of our town is in grave danger. Over the next hour, Sabrina and Noah took turns explaining the situation. They revealed the existence of the secret society, their plan to bring eternal spring to Hallowville, and the true nature of the artifact of equinox. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the gravity of the situation sank in. If they succeed, Sabrina concluded, it won't just mean endless spring. It could unravel the very fabric of magic that sustains our town and potentially affect the wider world. The room erupted into worried chatter. Agatha's voice cut through the noise, silencing the others. "And what do you propose we do about this, young Sabrina?" Sabrina met the older witch's gaze steadily. "We need to recover the remaining pieces of the artifact of equinox before the society does. It's our best chance at restoring balance and stopping their plan." Noah unrolled a map of Hallowville on the table, marked with potential locations of the artifact pieces. "We've identified several sites where the remaining pieces might be hidden. Our priority is to secure these locations and retrieve the artifacts." The group gathered around the map, discussing strategies and sharing insights. One of Sabrina's students, a young witch named Lily, pointed to a spot on the map. "This area has been exhibiting strange magical fluctuations lately. Could it be related to an artifact piece?" Sabrina nodded approvingly. "Excellent observation, Lily. That's definitely a spot we need to investigate." As the discussion continued, Noah began assigning roles based on each person's unique skills and magical abilities. "Lily, your talent for sensing magical auras will be crucial. I want you to lead a team to investigate the fluctuations you mentioned." He turned to a burly warlock named Gus. "Gus, your protective magic is some of the strongest in town. I need you to work on shielding our operations from detection." One by one, Noah allocated tasks, creating a web of coordinated efforts to counter the society's plans. Sabrina watched with pride as her students and allies accepted their roles with determination and courage. As the assignments were being finalized, Sabrina addressed the group once more. "We need to stay in constant communication. The society has already shown they're willing to go to extreme lengths to achieve their goals." She reached into her bag and pulled out a set of small, iridescent crystals. These communication crystals are attuned to a secure magical frequency. They'll allow us to stay in touch without risk of interception. Sabrina demonstrated how to use the crystals, showing the group how to send messages and alerts. "Remember, discretion is key. Use these only when necessary and always be aware of your surroundings." As the meeting began to wind down, the atmosphere in the room had shifted from one of worry to one of determined focus. Each person understood the role they had to play in saving Hallowville from magical catastrophe. Agatha, who had remained mostly silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke up. "You've done well to organize this, Sabrina and Noah, but be warned, the path ahead will be fraught with dangers beyond what you've faced before. Stay vigilant and trust in the magic that binds our town together." Sabrina nodded solemnly, appreciating the older witch's words of caution and support. As she opened her mouth to respond, a sudden commotion caught everyone's attention. Quill, who had been quietly observing from Sabrina's shoulder, suddenly became agitated. Its quills began to glow with an intensity that Sabrina had never seen before, casting the room in an otherworldly light. "Quill? What's wrong?" Sabrina asked, concern evident in her voice. The little hedgehog chirped urgently, its eyes wide and alert. Sabrina could feel waves of magical energy radiating from her familiar. Noah stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "Sabrina, what's happening?" She shook her head, trying to interpret Quill's reaction. "I'm not sure, but I think Quill is sensing a massive surge in magical energy across town." The room fell silent as everyone turned their attention to the glowing hedgehog. Sabrina closed her eyes, attempting to attune herself to whatever Quill was sensing. After a moment, her eyes snapped open, filled with alarm. "It's not just a surge," she said, her voice tight. "It feels like the magical fabric of Hallowville is shifting. Something big is happening right now." Noah's hand went to his communication crystal instinctively. "We need to move, fast. Whatever the society is planning, it looks like they're making their move." The room burst into action, with team members grabbing their assigned gear and heading for the door. Sabrina and Noah exchanged a determined look, knowing that the real challenge was only just beginning. As they prepared to leave, Quill's glow intensified even further, its chirps becoming more urgent. Sabrina scooped up her familiar, feeling the magical energy pulsing through its tiny body. "Lead the way, Quill," she said softly. "Show us where we need to go."